And so it was like a huge emptiness.
On top of that emptiness came the alienation of adolescence, which every teenager goes through in some ways, but that doesn't make it less painful.
Nothing seemed normal. I didn't get my period till I was 17, and I was at boarding school, and I would buy Kotex every month and pretend. I pretended a lot of things because I wanted to fit in, but I didn't fit in. First of all, my father was famous, and second of all, I thought I actually did think that I maybe was supposed to be a boy. It was, you're probably too young to remember this, but the very first transgendered person to come into public notice was Christine Jorgensen, who became a woman. And I was utterly riveted to this and was convinced that I was supposed to be a boy. And
Can you tell me more about that?
I used to get a mirror and sit in such a way that I could look at my vagina and try to figure out if maybe it wasn't supposed to be a penis. I didn't know what I was looking for. I didn't know what was supposed to be there. I didn't know what was normal. I didn't feel any of the things that my girlfriends seemed to be feeling. It was scary. It really was.
You were 12 when your mother killed herself. Who took care of you after that?
Well, my mother's mother, my grandmother, was the person who lived with us. Eventually, my father married a woman who I loved very much. She was only 7 years older than I, but she was capable of, God bless her soul, and she's still alive, Susan. She was an extremely beautiful woman who brought laughter into our family, and that was wonderful. And she didn't stay married to my father very long, but she meant a great deal to me and my brother. We called her Mom, too.
How old were you when she became your stepmother?
13. And it was she that when I finally did get my period at 17, she took me to a gynecologist who, could answer my questions. The first thing I did when I was alone with him was burst into tears. I started asking questions and just burst into tears. And he said, "You know something? This is absolutely normal."
So how do you think, you describe your teenage years as a time of just confusion.
Confusion, yeah.
How do you think that affected your relationships with men over your life?
Well, it took a long time. It's not just the question of sex. It's I wasn't dealt a good hand when it came to understanding what intimate relationships are supposed to be like. And I did a lot of work on myself while I was married to Ted Turner. And so when the time came for us to no longer be together, all the work that I had put into myself, I finally could apply.
When you say work, what does that mean?
Well, it includes therapy. I guess I started in therapy when I was, after I'd been married to Ted for about 3 years.
Was that the first time you'd been in therapy?
Yes.
Wow.
And it was not Freudian lying on the couch with some guy behind you. Mm-hmm. It was feminist therapy. It was relational therapy. It was a woman sitting and looking me right in the eye and crying with me. And it made me understand everything about me and my life and my family. And it really saved me. And I'm so grateful.
Jane Fonda first got married at age 27 to the French filmmaker Roger Vadim. He directed her in Barbarella, and she would later say, in the bedroom, too. They had a daughter and divorced. Then in 1972, Jane Fonda married Tom Hayden, a prominent anti-war activist. He was a co-founder of SDS, Students for a Democratic Society. They had a son and divorced in 1990. The next year is when Jane Fonda married Ted Turner, the billionaire cable executive. You have talked after the end of your second marriage, your divorce from Tom Hayden. that you had a breakdown?
Yes, I didn't even realize it at the time. It was only looking back on it that well, I guess I did. It wasn't even that it was that good a marriage, but, sometimes a divorce or a crisis can pull the scab off a very, very, very early wound, and that's what this did to me. I couldn't speak above a whisper. I couldn't eat. I could only walk very, very slowly. It was all the cliches. Heavy heart. My heart weighed 20 pounds.
And that wasn't long. The end of your second marriage and the beginning of your third marriage were pretty close in time. When you started therapy, was it in part to deal with some of the emotional residue from that second divorce and understanding that breakdown?
Okay, since I've written about it, I will say what it is. A month after Ted and I were married, I discovered he was having an affair. And so I left him. And then I decided that I needed to go into therapy, and I went to a couples therapist. And in talking to him about the marriage, I realized that part of the problem was mine, and that maybe I should give Ted a second chance, and that the two of us should go into therapy together, which we did. But then I, unlike him, I continued on my own with therapy. So that's how I got into it. And it's how I got out of it eventually. It was a very scary thing. I was 62 years old, and it was a very safe thing being married to Ted. I didn't have to work. He was funny. He was handsome and fun and all those things. But I knew that if I stayed with him, I could never be a fully realized person, and I had to make a decision, and it was really scary. And I felt like Virginia Woolf, only I had two angels in the house, one on one shoulder saying, "Oh, come on, Fonda, lighten up." I mean, God, he's got 2 million acres of the most gorgeous land in the world, and he's funny, and he keeps you laughing. And on the other shoulder, there was an angel with a very soft whisper saying, "Jane, you could stay with him and die married, but you'll die not being whole." And so I opted for the whisper.
Jane Fonda separated from Ted Turner in 2000 and filed for divorce a year later. She'd left acting during their marriage, and in 2005, she took her first film role in 15 years, opposite Jennifer Lopez.
Call me old-fashioned. Marriage is a sacred union that should only be entered into with the utmost care.
Weren't you married 4 times?
Yes, dear. I never could have done Monster-in-Law if I hadn't been married to Ted for 10 years. I mean, Ted taught me that, over the top can be okay. I mean, he's completely outrageous and very lovable at the same time. And Ted gave me courage. Ted gave me the courage to be funny. Ted taught me how to laugh.